So the first question I have for you is, you've built a global platform as a faith-based empowerment speaker.
Mm-hmm.
When did you first know this was your calling and not just a career? It's
Thank
a
you for
two-in-one.
asking that question.
Sorry, sorry, just give me a moment, right? So that you can answer the both together, right? So
Sure.
the two-in-one question, right? So, and how do we also tell the difference based on what we do, especially even for those who are employed, not just for those who are, employers, and stuff. Employers could tell you, oh, it's my calling, I'm driven towards this. But as an employee, right? How do you actually know that sometimes these things are not just career, these things are actually a call, you know?
Great question. So your purpose is going to be a combination of your past, your pain, and your preparation. So when I look back over my life, even as a child, I've always been about empowering others. I was my sixth grade class president. I was my senior year high school president. At 16 I wrote a newspaper article that made the front page of my hometown newspaper. I was in yearbook, I was in magazine, you name it, in high school. So I've always had a natural love for empowerment and media. And so I took that and I went off to Florida A&M University, which is my alma mater for my undergraduate degree in broadcast journalism. And so I've always had just this knowing in who I am and a natural interest. And as a mom, that's why I spend so much time sharing with parents to pay attention to your children's interests. And see how you can positively cultivate them, because when a child has an interest in something, that is an indication that that is probably linked to a gift that God has given them. Because as a child, you don't know enough about the world to know what you love. You just know what you feel and what excites you. And so for me, it's been something that I've walked with. It's been something that I've carried all of my life. Now, when I graduated Florida A&M University, got into corporate America in 2009, I was working in the media department of AirTran Airways, which is now Southwest Airline. And so they had an in-flight magazine, and I was actually one of the salespeople that would write articles for the magazine, sell into the magazine, etc. And it was at that moment that I said, you know what? This is my career, to your point. This is my career, but this is not my call, because there's an aspect of this that is missing. And the aspect that was missing in 2009 in my corporate career was my call, my ministry, because I've known since I was 14 years old that I was called to empower. I was called to minister. And so in 2009 is when I began the journey of seeking God to see, well, how can I marry these two? How can I marry my call with also my purpose? And that's when I began the journey of LR Global Media Group, which stands for Life Redefined. Initially, it started off as Life Now, but I renamed it because I believe that as you evolve, names and titles will shift. And so that's how we ended up where we are today. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing, great stuff.
Okay.
That's a very good story. Yeah, that's a very good story. And I like when you mentioned three things. You said it's your past, it's your pain, and it's your preparation. That was so amazing. That was so amazing. But while we are still taking that in, so I'll just give the next question for Ebony. And Ebony, this question is for you. Okay, let me just ask it. As someone who
I think I want to
embraces
answer Tara's question. Is it Tara or Teresa?
Tara.
Tara. Okay. It definitely feels like I got the same person to speak.
right.
I'm listening to her like, oh my God, so much synergy there. That is so crazy.
Thank you.
Great stuff. So, for Ebony, as someone who's embraced storytelling and healing, what's a wound that eventually became your greatest source of wisdom?
Oh, ooh. What's a wound that eventually became my greatest source of wisdom? Man, I wish y'all would have sent me this question before. I am so wounded. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I would say from the moment of conception, I was born into deception. That is a line from a poem in one of my books. And that's really the theory behind my first book, Black Wings Still Fly, because I was born into a broken home. I was born without a father present. My father was on drugs and in and out of jail. My mom was in an abusive relationship, and from early childhood, from as far as I can remember, I've had to figure it out for myself. And one day I was in my car, I was sitting in my driveway, and I just felt burnt out with life. I don't know if anyone has ever been in a position where you feel like, God, I have literally checked every box that I thought I could associate with success. If you come from nothing, right? You have a blueprint of what you think success is supposed to be like. And so you journey to check all those boxes. And I got to a point in my life where I checked all the boxes, but I still felt unaccomplished. And I'm like, Lord, if it wasn't going off to college, if it wasn't getting a great job, if it wasn't getting married, what was it that was going to make me feel fulfilled? And then a black butterfly landed on my car. I thought it was a moth, but I looked at it closer and I'm like, no, this is a black butterfly. And it's not often that we see black butterflies, right? Everyone's drawn to butterflies because of their color, because of the magical essence of how they move and how they light up a room. But no one looks at a black butterfly and go, oh, I want that to touch me. And in that moment, the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, black wings still fly. So when you ask me, what is a wound that is a source of wisdom for me, it is the essence of my humanity, knowing that there is nothing I can do that's going to check every box. I'm never going to make it to this destination that we all create in our mind that tells us we've arrived. That is not a thing. There is no you've arrived. Every day is a moment for you to be present, for you to experience love, joy, peace, and success. And I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we don't take time to sit in the moment. We want to get to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, because we're trying to qualify our purpose. We're trying to qualify our success here on earth. But in essence, like, you're never really going to get there. Wherever you think there is, it's not there. And so it's so important to be present now. So whatever imperfection you're carrying, whatever insecurity you feel about your business, whatever insecurity you feel about your relationships, whatever it is, black wings still fly. There is still opportunity literally in everything that you have going on. So I can't speak to one particular wound because I have dealt with adversity at every aspect of my life, but I have never let adversity define me.
Amazing. Thank you so
Right.
much for sharing that. Thank you so much. And I feel like saying amen to that, if that's okay. Thank you so much. Sorry, I was always calling Teresa instead of Tera. I wanted to take note of that.
It happens. People put my middle name and first name together. That it happens.
So good stuff. So, Ebony, you said something very interesting when you talked about, from conception, we were born, or you were born, but I think it's we were born into deception, and yet you still realize that in the midst of all of these things, black wings still fly. That is something that I'm going to take home and I'm not going to forget. While I ask Tera my next question.
Sure.
And Tera,
Mhm.
when I was reading your bio earlier, I mentioned bold and authentic, and all of that, right? So what does bold and authentic living look like when no one is watching?
It looks like being true to yourself unapologetically. And that's the only way to be free. That is truly the only way to be free, because a lot of times people will try to live in a mold that they think is acceptable to other people. But here's the thing, if you please those people, there's 7 billion people on the face of the planet. Somebody else is still going to talk about you. So you get to the space and the place that you recognize that the most important person to please, again, I'm faith-based, is God, and then outside of God is yourself, because you are the only somebody that you have to live with until the day that you die. And so bold, authentic, it's going to come from unapologetic living. This is who I am. This is my purpose. This is what I believe in. This is what I'm striving for. I'm not asking for anybody's permission. I'm 41 years old. I generally don't ask for anybody's permission at my age, because I'm responsible for my own decisions. I have to carry the weight of them. I have to carry the consequences of them. And so with that being said, I really encourage everyone to find out who you are. And if that means coming off social media for a season, because so often who people choose to be, it's influenced by who they see other people being. being. But again, as a believer, I recommend that you come off social media for a season and you go into your prayer closet. Going back to what I said earlier, in 2009, that's when I ended my corporate career with Go Magazine. That was the magazine on AirTran Airways. And I felt God telling me so strongly, turn off your cable. No cable TV, just the basic channel so you can watch the news and get the necessary alerts. And I was so tuned into my purpose in 2009, which is also the year I got licensed into ministry, that I didn't even know who Snooki was. For American listeners, you know that Snooki is a personality from what is it, Jersey Shore. I didn't even know who she was because I was that locked in to my purpose and tuning in to what God had for my life. And so I encourage everybody, if you're ready to be authentic, you need to be yourself unapologetically, and you're going to find out who you are from God in your prayer closet, not by looking at what is working for somebody else on social media.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you so much. That was really so profound. But because I still have so many questions, or maybe not so many, but I still have some questions to ask. So I'll just dive right into that of Ebony. Ebony, entrepreneurs organization, our theme for the year is leadership. It's all about leading, right? So it's our year, like we would always say, of leading, right? So, and luckily for us, we have two great leaders, speak to us today. But I want to ask a question, because as a leader is synonymous to significance. And there are many entrepreneurs stuck between survival and significance. How did you break that tension?
Oh my gosh, who came up with these questions? These are so good. Oh man, I feel, again, I'm going to go back to Tera. So let me say this. I'm a firm believer that strangers can be your mentor. So as Tera is talking, I'm like getting coaching from her. Like even as she's talking, I'm like, oh, she's mentoring me and she doesn't know it. And one time I went to see Michelle Obama and people were like, oh my gosh. I said, yeah, that's my mentor. I don't know her, but I listened to her. You can learn from strangers. You don't have to have a personal relationship with them in order for them to be your mentor. But the reason why I bring Tera back into this discussion is because she's talking about authenticity. So in my role, not only in entrepreneurship, but I'm also a software sales manager. I manage a team of 8 men. Not only do I manage a team of 8 men, I manage a team of 8 white men. And if this was me in my career 10 years ago, I would have so much imposter syndrome. Oh, am I good enough? Am I saying my words right? And all of the things that we struggle with when we go into corporate America and we feel like we have to code switch. I experienced the greatest breakthrough in my career when I stopped code switching. When I started showing up fully as myself, when I began to leverage my humor, my personal experiences, because we are more alike than we are different. And so when you're talking about being in that space of like struggle or feeling insignificant, a lot of times it's because you're not leading with your significance. You are assimilating based on what, like Tera said, what you think it's supposed to look like. And earlier you also talked about purpose and calling. Personally, I believe they're the same. When you look in scripture, and I know this isn't church, but I'm just going to say it anyway, because this is embedded in me. Jesus was a carpenter. The core foundation of a carpenter is to repair, rebuild, restore, install, which is literally what he did in ministry. When he went to the disciples, they were fishermen. And he said, follow me and I'm going to make you fishers of men. He did not change who they were at their core. In fact, he took the thing that made them who they were and he maximized on it so that they can be used in a greater way. So if you're sitting in a space where you're like, I feel insignificant, I feel like I'm not having a breakthrough, I feel burnt out, I'm almost certain there are parts of you that are muted. There's an element of your personality that you're not bringing into the space. There's an element of your style that you're not letting people see. There's something about your past that you're not leading with from the space of storytelling to personally and authentically connect with your audience. So my challenge to you would be to identify your significance in those spaces as a leader where you are feeling insignificant. Ask yourself, what part of me have I been putting on the back burner, hiding or muting because I didn't think it was good enough? And I can almost promise you that that is the very thing you should be leading with.
Great stuff. Great stuff. That's the very thing. Yes, I agree. Actually, that's the very thing you should believe in with. But I'm not going to go to Tera yet. I'm still going to stay on Ebony, if that's okay. Right? Ebony, I want to ask you a next question. There's a reason why I'm making it a sequel, right? The question is very simple. What is the hardest leadership decision you've made that no one clapped for you, but you knew it was the right decision?
I will talk about laying someone off, but I'm not going to do that. So in 2017, part of what I did with Tabitha's Tea Party is that I will host annual women's conferences. And in 2017, I did a conference called, or 2018, I did a conference called Girl Get Up. And again, significance. I did not want to just do any conference. And every year, God gives me something that's unique to add flair to the conference. And so this particular year, I wanted to do a documentary. Mind you, I have no background in film. I've never published, I've never done anything with producing, directing, anything like that. But I got this bright idea to do a documentary. And the documentary was entitled Girl Get Up, Rising from Dead Places. And so this documentary featured a woman dealing with infertility, a woman who had just gotten out of prison, another woman who attempted suicide, and another woman who was addicted to meth. And so it was their journey of getting out of those dead spaces. At that particular time, when I wanted to move forward with that idea, it was a financial investment that people felt like I didn't have the experience to align my finances with. So a lot of people were saying, you shouldn't do it. You don't have any background in it. I don't think it's a great idea. You haven't put a business case with it, but I did it anyway. Long story short, or shorter story long, the guy that I partnered with said, hey, I'm going to submit this to the Emmys, and I think you should do so as well as an executive producer. Long story short, the documentary was Emmy nominated. And it is something that I am so proud of because I went from having no experience to being an Emmy nominated executive producer. And so I just say, like, in those moments where you feel that unctioning to do something that you've never done before, it's okay. It's okay, because you just never know what other door that's going to open. And that put me in rooms with people I never thought I would be in rooms with. And those rooms included people who thought greater, who were crazy enough to believe. How do I say this? Birds of a feather flock together. But sometimes you have to dare to go gather with another flock. If you want to be around people who think crazy, do crazy, and see miraculous things in their life, you have to be surrounded by them. Otherwise, you're going to be around people who tell you, oh, you should be worried about this, you should be worried about that. And then you have to look at their situation and say, what evidence has your worry produced for you?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want your life. I don't take advice from people who aren't living a life I want to experience. So I'd rather fall on my own sword than fall on somebody's butter knife. And I'm just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I like the way you both, have very nice way of handing your speech like you've always prepared for. At the beginning, when you start, it feels like, where are these questions coming from? But you just, answer so well that it feels like we're just having another masterclass again. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Ebony. So Tera, I'm going to come to you with 2 questions,
Sure.
right? But don't worry, I'll try to go easy on you. So Tera, the first question I'd like to ask you is, what would the 2025 Tera look back to the 2015 Tera?
All of the adversity. I said all the time, nothing that I have been through has worked against me. it has worked for me. And so in 2015, I was going through a divorce. And it was divorce by choice because I knew that I should not have been in that marriage. But because I'm well known across the globe as a female preacher, as an empowerment speaker, and I had been in that marriage for less than a year, I looked crazy. I looked out of order. I looked all kind of foolish to people who did not understand what I was walking away from. But I kept moving. And so I knew then I would survive because I'm a survivor. But I now know that every rock, every lie, every rumor, every plot, every out for me. And I talk about that in my book with Les Brown, Your Story Sells, how I took everything that was thrown at me and I went and I made $1 million from it. And so when I look back on everything that I've been through, and this is why I tell people that God doesn't waste materials. God doesn't waste anything. Anything that you have been through, it will work out for you. And so you talked about earlier when you were speaking to Ebony about the wisdom that can come from your wounds. Well, I found out very quickly that when you are a beautiful woman who is successful, people don't want to believe that it's you and God behind your success. And so I took that and I created a brand. The website is successbullying.us. And I was very intentional by using US because US represents us. Not only has that been trademarked in the United States through our patent and trademark office, but it's a brand that I have used to speak on platforms in corporate America and make $15,000 for that speech. It's something that I've used to sell t-shirts, rumors, things that your haters wish were true about you and sold out 3 times. It is something that is forever a part of my legacy that I can use to teach from and empower other people. And that's something I want to say to the entrepreneurs listening in. Don't you think that you're going to arrive at a place called success and not have haters. You will, but it is what you do with their hatred that defines you. I will never stoop low enough to allow what somebody thinks about me, what somebody feels about me to become my guiding light, to become my shining star. It's what me and God have partnered together to think about me and say about me that's going to run my show. And so you have to get tough. You have to have that just perseverance that says, you didn't make me, you will not be breaking me. You don't get to tell me what my purpose is. You don't get to tell me how successful I can be. And you don't get to give me a consequence because I've gone out and done something purposeful with my life. And so what I would look back on myself in 2025 and tell myself in 2015 is, girl, you doing it and keep on doing it because you're going to end up somewhere.
Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. I love it. And even from when she talks, I'm sure you all can feel that she keeps doing it. From the way I mean, and of course, I love the way, everything you've shared truly, shows that story that you've been through. And personally, I'm glad to know what you would have told your 2015 self. Thank you for, like I said, I mentioned I was going to ask you 2 questions. And so I've got the second one for you. And the second one for you is, what is the moment in your journey that almost made you quit? And what pulled you back?
Moment in my journey that almost made me quit and what pulled me back. I don't want to sound arrogant, but I've never felt like quitting. Have I gotten tired? Yes. But I've never felt like quitting. I've never felt like giving up, but I have taken pauses to begin again more intelligently. And that's part of the gift that God has put on the inside of me. And this is why I spend so much time really pouring into parents to say, don't kill your child's fire. Because what my fire looked like when I was a child was that I was stubborn. But I am grateful that I had a mother that did not break my spirit. Okay, because God knew that fire that I had put in Tera, that stubbornness, that I'm not backing down. We can go 12 more rounds if that's what you want to do. God knew that was going to be necessary for my journey down the road. And so I've never felt like quitting, but have I taken time to say, you know what? I am running into something and I believe that I can handle this more intelligently. I believe that we can reduce the warfare by going a different way. Absolutely. So I won't call it a quitting. I will call it a pause. And I think I probably hit that maybe around 2018. Again, I'm very successful in ministry, flying all around the globe, speaking on major platforms. Everybody is not happy for you, including other people who go to church. I talk about that in my book, Unapologetically Anointed, when sometimes your enemies will be anointed. And so it kind of gave me pause to say, okay, so wait a minute, what's going on and why? And so I restructured, because I do believe that sometimes the way that the winds are blowing will help you to adjust your sails. And so I took a pause in 2018 and said, there's a more intelligent way to go about this. There is a more enemy-proof way to go about it. So I'm not going to quit. I am just going to fortify in such a way that my enemies can see me, but not touch me. Because you're going to see me. That's just how my God is, baby. You go see me, baby.
I love this. I love this. Yeah, Ebony wanted to say something, but your mic was muted. I, I love all that I just heard. Thank you so much again, Tara, for sharing. Thank you so much again for sharing. So I have two more questions, right? But these two questions are for the both of you. So the first question you would answer for a minute. The second one you would answer for 2 minutes, right? So the
first question you answer for how long? I'm sorry.
1 minute, please.
Okay.
Yes, so for the both of you, right? It's a very simple question, but I want to get your both view of the question, right? Or for the question. So as a leader, if you're starting your career today, especially into this digital and social climate and all of that, what would you do differently? So who wants to go first?
Let Ebony go first, since I just spoke.
All right, Ebony.
Can you ask the question again, please?
So in today's world, right, if you're starting your career today, right, with all that the digital and social climate has given to us in like today, right, what would you do differently if you're starting your career today?
Digitally, what would I do differently, or just in general?
Just in general, but I mean, just to take note of the fact that this is a world where there's been digital advancement, social climate, and all of those things.
Personally, I don't think any of those things matter. I think at your core, you just have to evolve. Like, you have to be committed to evolving, because technology, the thing about technology is that it only seems modern for the culture that you're in, but technology has existed since the inception of time. It was technology that built Noah's Ark. It's just a matter of how you're looking at it. But at its core, it's just science. So technology has always been around. There's literally nothing on Earth that has not already been here. We're just evolving as humans. And so I think it is to our best interest to leverage resources that are offered to us during the time in which we are fortunate enough to live. I think a lot of people, I use the analogy of, like, some people still want to use the phone book when they have Google, because that's how they've always done it. Instead of embracing what's new, I think people get intimidated by the future, or they're nervous about the future, and they are intimidated by technology. I'm not intimidated by technology. It's a part of who we are. Leverage it, let it work for you. Especially AI. Like, you can do so many prompts with ChatGPT. Just tell it what you need and it'll spit it out. I call my ChatGPT Aisha. She is my virtual assistant. I gave her a name, Aisha AI. The other thing I would say, just to speed it up, is I wouldn't have hid behind my brand. When I first started in entrepreneurship, I was so insecure in myself that I let my brand speak for me. So, for example, with Tabitha's Tea Party, I branded Tabitha's Tea Party so much that people thought my name was Tabitha, because I didn't think that Ebony King was enough. So I allowed myself to be branded by a character instead of allowing my own story to come to the forefront. And so I had to do a lot of reintroducing of myself for years, so that people knew, like, oh, Ebony King is the founder of Tabitha's Tea Party. And when you do that, when you hide behind your brand, it makes it difficult for you to pivot, and people will think that you're only good as the one brand that you're associated with, and they won't give space for you to move into anything else. So depending on the type of business that you have, I would say For me, one thing that I definitely would have done differently is I would have built the brand of Ebony first, so that whatever Ebony births, people will know, like, oh, it's going to be amazing because Ebony is amazing. But I got stuck with Tabitha's tea party. And so everyone is like, when are you doing another tea party? And I'm like, I'm not doing those anymore. So you have to be intentional about building the brand of you. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. But of course, that was not in my 1 minute first. So I believe that Tera can be a sister's keeper, to just give us 30 seconds, if that's okay.
Fine by me.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No,
What I
that's
would
totally
do,
fine.
what I would do
Go ahead.
slightly different is bring in more of my corporate expertise into the ministry realm, because very often, well, all the time, corporate is all the time ahead of ministry when it comes to technology. But I think when I look back, I tried to assimilate and blend into ministry a little bit too much, and that stemmed from not being okay with being a leader. And so if you are aware of a technology, you're proficient in it, and you know how to use it, don't be afraid to take that wisdom, that knowledge, innovation, and expertise where you're going, and be okay with being a forerunner, somebody who is cutting edge and at the beginning of that journey for that particular industry.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.